today. Here at Al-Mahdi Institute, having not been able to host and convene this Big Iftar since 2019 due to the pandemic, on behalf of Al-Mahdi Institute, it gives me great honor to welcome friends, family, neighbors of the Institute to share this occasion with us. This holy month of Ramadan, in many ways, has been a month of gains and losses. So on one hand, through the fasting, we should have gained insight, a bit of insight into the feelings and the experiences of those who are less privileged than we are. And on the flip side, we should have lost a sense of entitlement, a bit of ego, and ingratitude. Gains through occasions like this and interactions such as these with people from different faith persuasions and different backgrounds, from all walks of life. We should have gained new friends and new insights, and perhaps lost, on the other hand, some prejudices and negative preconceptions we might have had. Gains as a result of our efforts and fasting, we should have gained the pleasure of God, nearness to Him, and His reward. And through that fasting, hopefully lost a waist size and some unneeded weight. And as you can see, some of us have been more successful at that than others. So on that note, as you would have seen, the theme for tonight's gathering is to learn the lessons that we have gathered through the shared experience of COVID, which we are hopefully now coming out of. And on that note, we can see our honorable guests and speakers to my right side, who I'm sure will keep within the time frame of 5 to 10 minutes in the interest of time. We're slightly running behind schedule, but hopefully that will be adjusted during the program. Before we go on, just a couple of housekeeping rules. We're not expecting the fire alarm to go off, and so there's no fire drill planned. So if it does go off, one exit is just the way we came through, the back of the room there, and out that way. Another fire exit is with the speakers seated here. There's a fire exit just on that side there. The bathroom is located, if you come out of those two doors, down the long corridor, and on the right side, the bathrooms for male and female bathrooms are located there. If you need any help, guidance, of course, please don't hesitate at all to approach one of the AMI Al-Mahdi Institute staff members who you would see with this badge on. And of course, they'll be more than happy to assist you in any way they can. And at the end of today's session, we hope to end at around 8:25 with a raffle draw with a wonderful prize, hopefully for the lucky person who wins that, and congregational prayers thereafter, and the iftar meal, which of course we are all waiting for. So without any further ado, it gives me an honor also to start the program by calling up our Quran reciter, Qari Muhammad Ali, to the front to grace us with his recitation.
Hi everybody, Assalamu alaikum. I'll just recite a few verses from the Quran regarding when the angels visited Prophet Abraham to give him the good news of Isaac and Jacob. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد جاءت رسلنا إبراهيم بالبشرى قالوا سلاما قال سلام فما لبث أن جاء بعجل حنيذ فلما رأى أيديهم
تصل إليه نكرهم وأوجس منهم خيفة قالوا لا تخف إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم لوط وامرأته قائمة فضحكت فبشرناها بإسحاق ومن وراء إسحاق يعقوب قالت يا ويلتى أألد وأنا عجوز وهذا بعلي شيخا إن هذا لشيء عجيب قالت يا ويلتى أألد وأنا عجوز وهذا بعلي شيخا إن هذا لشيء عجيب قالوا أتعجبين من أمر الله رحمة الله وبركاته عليكم أهل البيت إنه حميد مجيد صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you.
Thank you, Qari Muhammad Ali, for a very beautiful recitation. At this point, it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome one of our guest speakers who tells me that she's quite slightly intimidated to speak in front of you today, but I encouraged her, telling her, you're a very receptive crowd. She's just here to share a few thoughts about this evening's theme with us. So on that note, I'm going to welcome Miss Violet Owen, representing the local spiritual assembly of Baha'is in Birmingham. Please welcome her with a round of applause.
I am nervous, but also I feel really honored to be asked to speak today, especially today. It's a holy day for Baha'is. It's a period when Baha'u'llah, the founder prophet of the faith, declared himself to be the new messenger of God for today. So it's a very special occasion for me. When I first heard about the topic, I thought, I need to take my mind back right to the beginning of the pandemic, really, because it seems a long, long way away. So I tried to remember what happened in March 2020 when it all began. Well, I think first there was the shock, and then came the fear of the unknown, and different people tended to react in different ways. There was panic. Do you remember the empty shelves, the stacks of toilet paper, as if they would solve the problem? Then also anger set in. Why is this happening? People wanted to defy the law. And others reacted in denial. Well, as long as I'm in my house safe, it's not really happening. Now, the problem with fear is that it actually destroys any rational thinking. No matter how intelligent you are, when fear sets in, you lose control of, what is actually logical and rational. And I think that's the danger. So I saw very intelligent people, intelligent friends, reacting in most bizarre ways, and that really shocked me. I remember going to a friend's house and she wouldn't let me in. She had to talk through the window. So there were all kinds of extremes. Now, after that initial fear, it seems some people moved on, if you like, to another phase, the learning phase, and realized, well, we're all in this together, and let us all tackle it together in a united way. And let's take control again of our own decisions. And that started. And with that learning came, if you like, growth. We started not just thinking of ourselves, we started thinking of others and how to help them. We found a purpose by helping others. And we really appreciated the present as well and lived in the present. And perhaps most importantly of all, we learned to be grateful. We had forgotten how to be grateful. We took things for granted, our friends, our family, our health. And suddenly we were reminded, actually, those were the things we should have been grateful for, but we had forgotten. And also it gave a sort of realization of our connectedness, if that's a word, I don't know, I just made it up anyway. We really felt very connected to each other. Now, part of that growth I experienced was patience, learning how to be patient, learning how to accept and be resigned, gratitude, being thankful and contented, having compassion for others, and also forgiveness. And by that, I'm particularly thinking on a personal level with my friends. Suddenly, I found this group of friends who I thought were all very similar because they were my friends, all reacting very differently to the situation. As I said, some were fearful and pushed me away. Others were in denial and acted in an unlawful way, if you like. But I had to accept the whole spectrum of reaction and really forgive in a way, things that I saw as not being right. But it wasn't the case of perhaps denying what was happening. What seemed to be happening with some of us as we went through these phases of learning and growth is that our perspective changed. The problem was still there, but we learned how to deal with it, and the acceptance that actually tests and difficulties make us stronger. And also to remain hopeful. That was the challenge, to always remain hopeful. Now, in that period, some pieces of the Baha'i writings really helped me, and I want to share them. And they still help me now. One of them is, should prosperity befall thee, rejoice not, and should abasement come upon thee, grieve not, for both shall pass away and be no more. And one where it reminds us to be content and grateful. Anybody can be happy in the state of comfort, ease, health, success, pleasure, and joy. But if one will be happy and contented in times of trouble, hardship, and prevailing disease, it is indeed the proof of nobility. How am I doing? Oh, yes, there's a big clock there. So I've got a few minutes, I think. Yes, 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. Can I fit this? A prayer I was sharing with my pensioners really has kept me going through the pandemic and has continued to keep me going. And it's really an invocation, and I would like to say it because it's really special to me. So I might take up 2.5 minutes. O thou who turneth thy face unto God, close thine eyes to all things else, and open them to the realm of the all-glorious. Ask whatsoever thou wishest of him alone. Seek whatsoever thou seekest from him alone. With a look, he granteth 100,000 hopes. With a glance, he healeth 100,000 incurable ills. With a nod, he layeth balm on every wound. And with a glimpse, he setteth free the hearts from the shackles of grief. He doeth what he doeth, and what recourse have we? He carrieth out his will, and ordaineth what he pleases. Then better for thee to bow down thy head in submission, and put thy trust in the all-merciful Lord. And as I said, this prayer, whenever I'm desperate, God, take over, please, thy will. I'll finish now. I think I've got 1 more minute, and I think I should do it. Some further writings, because we came sort of out of the pandemic and almost bang, straight away came the war in Ukraine. And if you had felt helpless during the pandemic and were gaining your confidence again, you felt again very helpless and wondered, what can we do? So I'll read this. If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thoughts, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of our thoughts. And this was a good reminder. And then some more reassuring words in the face of war. This was from the Universal House of Justice to a believer who was quite shaken by the effects of the war. And it says, prayer and acts of service may seem like a feeble and slow response when weapons of destruction are fired. They are, however, the means by which ultimately those weapons will be silenced forever. And I find that very reassuring. I'll finish now with just a short, it's like an invocation to God, really. And I think I just feel so strengthened when I read this. Armed with the power of thy name, nothing can ever hurt me. And with thy love in my heart, all the world's afflictions can in no wise alarm me. I'll repeat that. Armed with the power of thy name, nothing can ever hurt me. And with thy love in my heart, all the world's afflictions can in no wise alarm me.
Violet gave us numerous insightful points upon which to dwell. And if truly you were at all nervous, that didn't come across at all, and your address was very heartfelt. Thank you so much for that. Inspiring. On that note, with the word inspiring, I'm going to call upon Mr. Nurinder Chauhan. He's an educator on religious studies based here in Birmingham. And working with local schools, he's of course responsible for enlightening the next generation with religious understandings of all types. So on that note, it's my honor to call him to the front.
Hello, welcome. When I received an email from Mr. Tajri, I was honored. And as I read further down the email, when it said, if you can do a speech as well, then horror struck in the same way Ms. Violet, I'm sure, experienced. But can I put a disclaimer out first of, if Mr. Singh, if I get a few things wrong from a Sikhism perspective, you can correct me later on. Okay, thank you again. Okay, Sikhism, like every religion, professes universal love, altruism, and promotes compassion. But it does something, I feel, a bit more than that, and it's lodged in the Sikhism mainframe, where we say service to others, i.e. seva. Now, the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, who helped in the construction of the Golden Temple in Amritsar, his main drive, during his time, many people believed leprosy to be divine retribution for the sins of the people. Now, the Guru rejected that, and he said the divine would never be so vengeful and vindictive. Now, to illustrate this point with tonight's theme in mind, he set up a treatment area for people afflicted with the leprosy in Lahore. And for a whole year, he spent there showing his kindness, compassion, as well as lifting people's spirits. From here, the motto for the Sikh community was establish service before self. And during the pandemic, I've seen that so many times. We've heard it in the media where communities have come together. With the travel being closed down, I always thought it was amazing that we travel to these far-flung places, but we don't know our neighbours 2 or 3 doors down your road. And I think the NHS, the banging of the drums, the cutlery on a Thursday's evenings, it brought people together. What lessons have we learnt? Now, I don't profess to be a professor or anything or an expert, but firstly, the places of worship. They were seen as a vital community hub where people could access it at any time, especially for refuge in times of crisis. It wasn't until much of this disappeared overnight because of the enforced closures, of course, that the full importance to individuals and communities was realized. Like I say, it's only when something has gone that we appreciate what we used to have. Secondly, to count our blessings. I personally got COVID as well, and in October time, I can almost tell you which student I probably got it from. And to this day, I haven't got my taste or smell back, but it's all relative. To see people, the suffering that they did go through. To count our blessings, the lesson for our health, as Violet, you said, our loved ones and our health, the two things that were in jeopardy in the pandemic. We've been given a gift called life. So instead of worrying about the little things, understand what you have. Give someone you love a call. Enjoy the spring sunshine, which we're experiencing at the moment. And smell, well, unless it's shoved under my nose, the blossoming flowers. Now, challenges and struggles have always been throughout history, but religion teaches us God has a plan. I have a poster in my classroom, man plans, God laughs. But religion teaches us, like I say, God has these plans set out for us. Our faith will help us to get through the other side of this pandemic. Finally, during the Easter break, I managed to read Captain Tom's best-selling autobiography, and the title of it, Tomorrow Will Be a Good Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan, for a wonderful address. The main points which I took from it is service to others and counting our blessings. That was really, really wonderful. Thank you. We are slightly behind our schedule. That's only because we started a bit later than we would have hoped, but I'm sure our coming talks will be succinct and kind of squashed for the sake of brevity. On that note, it gives me honor also to welcome to the front Reverend Dr. Helen Painter from the Bristol Baptist College, who is also the founding director for the Center of the Study of Bible and Violence. We have been in touch with Reverend Painter for quite some time, trying to organize something collaborative, and I'm really honored that she accepted our invitation today. And please welcome her to the front with a round of applause.
Salam alaikum and Eid Mubarak for next week. And thank you so much for the privilege of asking me to join this really special evening and to say a few things. As legend has it, the Emperor Nero fiddled while Rome burned. In fact, some historians accuse him of setting the fire himself. You may know that the fire burned for 9 days and destroyed 2/3 of the buildings in the city. Now, it's unclear whether those legends are true, but why are they even plausible? Why would the emperor, by inactivity, allow the destruction of the proud city that was the seat of his government? Well, the fire freed Nero of many of the encumbrances that were preventing him from rebuilding Rome in his own image. Cherished buildings that were old or ugly or simply in the way were all removed for him in one glorious catastrophe, leaving the fire open for his brave new world. Now, appealing as it might be to make some political comments this evening, I'm largely going to resist that temptation and confine my remarks to what I've observed about society in general, UK society, which I feel fairly confident about commenting on, and to some extent a wider trend, which I think I've observed in other nations during the great catastrophe of our own time. And we face a pension and care crisis in this nation. Prolonged life expectancy and falling investment returns have combined to create the perfect storm. Put simply, most pension pots just don't have enough money to pay out what they have promised. And with increased life expectancy, the burden that social and nursing care places upon the public purse is rising year on year. In 10 years, the UK's social care expenditure has risen by £1.5 billion in real terms. So when the pandemic struck in 2020, it might have been tempting to see it as a cure for that problem. Because, as our intuitions suggested, it quickly became apparent that it was the elderly and the frail who were most likely to succumb to that virus. And those are the people who are costing the nation so much money. We could simply then have allowed it to spread unchecked through our population, and hey presto, our pension and care crisis would be over. And all it would take would be a little inaction on our part to fiddle while Rome burned. Or if that felt a bit too ethically dubious, we might have simply rationed medical care, reserving it for those who were financially productive. We could have refused ITU admission to anyone above working age, and to those whose illnesses or disabilities made them a net drain on the public purse. Or, as a third possibility, if such social Darwinianism is simply too dystopic for our stomach, we could simply have rationed the vaccine. We could have rolled it out to those who contribute to the gross national product. We could have protected the bill payers, and if those at the upper end of their life come to a premature end, well, it couldn't be helped, could it? But we did none of those things. Instead, as a nation, we rolled up our sleeves and we got on with protecting the most vulnerable in our society. Many of us who were unlikely ourselves to experience severe outcomes from an infection willingly complied with measures designed to protect those who were at much greater risk. Now, I don't want to comment on individual policies, and clearly mistakes were made, some at the highest levels of government, and in particular this week we've been reminded of the government policy of discharging COVID-positive patients into nursing homes, which proved catastrophic for many. But overall, as a society, we circled our weak. We sought to protect them at great cost in every sense of that word. I can't be the only person who wept for joy to see Margaret Keenan at 90 years old receive the very first dose of the COVID vaccine. And those of us who were younger waited our turn, impatiently maybe, but for the most part, willingly. If I could quote from my own sacred text for a moment, and indeed the part of it that we share with our Jewish brothers and sisters, such actions are entirely in keeping with biblical ethics. It says, "Rise in the presence of the elderly, honor the aged, and fear your God," because the elderly are to be honored, not despised and discarded. It says, "When you're harvesting, leave the edges of the field and the dropped corn for the poor to harvest." That's a sort of ancient social security system. And it says, "Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind," because those who are more vulnerable are to be protected, not exploited. And again, the prophets thunder out the message, "Woe to those who take advantage of the orphan and the widow," because the strong must care for the weak. I know that similar prescriptions are made in the Quran. I hope it's acceptable for me to quote one in translation. "Have you considered him who denies the religion? It is he who mistreats the orphan and does not encourage the feeding of the poor. So woe to those who pray." And to those of the non-Abrahamic religions who are here this evening, please forgive me. I'm not familiar enough with your texts to be able to pull out examples, though I know that they exist. It can't be denied that in a few people, the pandemic brought out the worst qualities. I'm thinking of the profiteers and the scam artists and the purveyors of fake news. But in general, for most of us, it drew out some of our best qualities. People donated to food banks and volunteered to help run pop-up vaccine centres, and our doctors and nurses worked until they were falling over to save lives and make the dying comfortable. And our marvellous key workers laboured in intolerable conditions to keep all the essential services going, and ordinary people loved them for it and tried to express their gratitude. What the crisis drew out of us was neighbour love. And I think that the pandemic also reshaped our appreciation of who our neighbours actually are. In normal times, so many of us lead busy lives, commuting to work with only a passing acquaintance with those who live alongside us. And for us, lockdown brought us right back into being present in the local. On our daily walks, we discovered parts of our neighbourhoods we didn't normally frequent. And much more importantly, we developed a very direct concern for the needs of our immediate neighbours. But our concept of neighbour also broadened, I think. Now that all our interactions with other people were happening on Zoom, it became just as easy to have a conversation with someone on the other side of the world as it was to have one with our work colleagues in the same city. And so at the same time that our attention was becoming more focused on the ultra-local, it also paradoxically expanded to the global. For the first time, the study centre that I direct was able to include a truly international range of voices in our conference, including a number of people from the global south. And of course, this example from the academic sphere was reflected in popular culture too. People put resources online to help complete strangers who are homeschooling. Artists made songs and plays available free of charge. People read bedtime stories to strangers on YouTube. In my own sacred text, Jesus tells the story of a man who falls into the hands of violent thieves who leave him for dead. And two religious men pass by without helping him, and the one who does stop was the one who might have been considered an enemy. In telling this story, Jesus intends that we become broader in our understanding of who constitutes a neighbour. Now, a neighbour might not be the one we expect. He might be the one we've always been suspicious of. She might be the one we think doesn't like us. They might be the ones whose cultures we don't understand. In the 15th century, the invention of the movable type printing press, along with rising levels of literacy, made it possible for many ordinary people to access news and ideas from well beyond their own borders. It enabled the rapid advancement of scientific thought, and it was a fundamental element that facilitated the Reformation and later the Renaissance. And this made the world at once a bigger and a smaller place. Smaller because ideas could quickly travel across borders and even across continents. and bigger because people began to appreciate better how large and exciting and diverse this world really is. Coming on the back of the communications advances of the last 50 years, the pandemic has opened up a new world of possibility to us in what is perhaps the next great paradigm shift. It has made the world smaller, as we discussed, but it's also made the world bigger. We already knew we could do business with people across the world, but now we know we can have conversations with people across the world. We can learn from them and share ideas with them. We can grow in understanding and learn to appreciate their culture. We can build friendships and learn to love new neighbors in new places. In many ways, the possibilities that the printing press opened up were harnessed for appalling selfish purposes. The growing awareness of the wealth and wonder of other countries was a key factor in the great colonial projects of the European powers, leading to conquest and forced people displacements and wars, both local and global. But in our own time, with our new appreciation of who our neighbors truly are, with our hearts which have been softened by the suffering we've experienced and witnessed, perhaps there is a new possibility. Like Nero after the Great Fire of Rome, this is now time to rebuild. And we have the chance to shape a world that is different, not structured around the commodification of human bodies and labor, but around the value of humanity. And by value, I mean appreciation of and care, particularly for the weak and the vulnerable and the elderly. We have the chance to love our neighbors in a whole new set of ways. And I urge us all, whatever faith we have or don't have, to grasp that possibility with both hands.
Thank you so much, Reverend Painter, reminding us of the blessings we've actually had through the pandemic, God's blessings which have come to us as a conduit through human hands, to whom we also have to be grateful. Now, without any further ado, because I can see the clock ticking against us, I'm going to call upon and invite Acharyaji Umesh Yadav, representing the Hindu community in Birmingham, to say a prayer for us. Please welcome with a round of applause.
त्वं हि नः पिता वसो त्वं माता शतक्रतो बभूविथ अथा ते सुम्नमीमहे ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Myself is Acharya Dr. Umesh Yadav, Minister of Religion, Arya Samaj, West Midland, Birmingham. And it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. In last 2 years, we saw so much hard time, pandemic, COVID situation, and undoubtedly about all families, less or more suffered. Some lost their beloved, and it was very, very horrible time. When COVID started and announced in this country, it was about March 2020, and we thought to do something bravely, not to be not to be feared. So, in Arya Samaj, West Midland, we do every Sunday congregation and fire sacrifice, fire worship, Havan. So you have heard sometimes, in other community as well, some people put some herbs as dhuni, on fire, and it gives a good smoke to clean the environment. And in this way, we understand that that type of smoke cleans the viruses as well, which is harmful to our health. And we started Havan home through Zoom because people are restricted to come to the community and people are sitting at home and they are very sad. So helping them, we started Havan, and since March 2020 till date, we have been performing this, and we started to teach them some home remedy like basils, ginger, honey, and clove, black pepper. So this thing, turmeric, these all things are proved very, very helpful to control this situation in our families. And I also saw some this bad situation in our families, but luckily I didn't lose such type of any, you can say, death and like that. But I always try to convince our all relatives and friends to use ginger, honey, black pepper, and clove, and this all nimbu lemon tea, these all things. And by the grace of God, we passed this time, and it was okay for us. So, and be spiritual, be loving everyone. As a minister of religion, I had to perform even so funeral as well. I went, it was hard time, but I never feared, and I was always there to perform any funeral, and bravely, I did it bravely, and I took it as a challenge. Though some people stopped me not to go there, but no, I said, I will go there and I will perform and will help the people. So I have written a poem on this situation. It is in Hindi, but hope so many people here, you can understand Urdu and Hindi same way, yeah? So I would like to read it. In this poem, first there is a line, "To maro use char jute," means kick the virus. I am talking about virus. So kick not to any person or any people. Yeah, thank you. So This is like that. Daro nahi, why to be scared? Yeah? Daro nahi, मन करो मजबूत रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करोना जब आए पास, करुणा जब आए पास, तो मारो उससे 4 जूत रे। करुणा जब आए पास, तो मारो उसे 4 जूत रे। लेकिन कैसे होगा ये, है ना? नियमित हो खाना पीना, नियमित हो खाना पीना, नियमित व्यायाम हो, नियमित हो खाना पीना, एक्सरसाइज, रेगुलर एक्सरसाइज, यू नीड रेगुलर एक्सरसाइज। नियमित हो खाना पीना, डाइट, नियमित व्यायाम हो, नित्य ही भ्रमण करो, वॉकिंग, नित्य ही भ्रमण करो, हो आसन प्राणायाम रित रे, हो आसन प्राणायाम रित रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करुणा जब आए पास, तो मारो उसे 4 जूत रे। करुणा जब आए पास, तो मारो उसे 4 जूत रे। अदरक तुलसी लौंग, you know, I talked about ginger, basils, clove, these things. काली मिर्च की काढ़ा पियो, हल्दी शहद साथ संग, हल्दी शहद साथ संग, चाय पियो नींबू कूट रे, चाय पियो नींबू, लेमन है ना, लेमन का रस है ना, चाय पियो नींबू कूट रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करुणा जब आए पास, मारो उसे 4 जूत रे। खांसी जुकाम होवे, खांसी कफ, यू नो, खांसी जुकाम होवे, नाक बंद बलगम जब, खांसी कफ एंड कोल्ड एंड यू नो बलगम, ऑल द थिंग्स। खांसी जुकाम होवे, नाक बंद बलगम जब, दिन में 3 भाप ले, ओ भाप है ना, वेपर जैसे, put some you know something Vaseline like type, Vicks something in water, hot water, and take vap, you know, vapor. That was very helpful in that time, very helpful. सो खांसी जुकाम होवे, नाक बंद बलगम जब, 3 बार भाप ले, और गाओ प्रभु गीत रे, और गाओ प्रभु गीत रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करुणा जब आए पास, करुणा जब आए पास, तो मारो उसे जूत रे। ईश्वर का नाम जपना, ईश्वर गॉड है ना, रिमेंबर गॉड, अल्लाह, वट एवर यू टेक द नेम ऑफ गॉड, ये ईश्वर का नाम जपना, जीवन सादा और सच्चा हो, ट्रूथफुल लाइफ एंड सिंपल लाइफ, होके मन कर्म वाणी एक, होके मन कर्म वाणी एक, राखो हृदय शुद्ध प्रीत रे, राखो हृदय शुद्ध प्रीत रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, कर्तव्य का पालन ही, ड्यूटीफुल, यू हैव टू बी ड्यूटीफुल ऑलवेज, कीप लव in your heart for others, cooperation, good deed, कर्तव्य का पालन ही सच्चा जीवन धर्म जाने. Religion is not dharma. Religion is also sect, but dharma means to be dutiful, to do help to others. So, कर्तव्य का पालन ही सच्चा जीवन धर्म जाने, मानवता ही मन की होवे, ह्यूमैनिटी, मानवता ही मन की होवे, धारा धरो नीत रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करोना जब आए पास तो मारो उसे जूत रे. एंड लास्ट, आलेकुम सलाम चाहे, आलेकुम सलाम चाहे, नमस्ते उमेश कर जोड़ा, आलेकुम सलाम चाहे, नमस्ते उमेश कर जोड़ा, मन से न दूर होना, मन से न दूर होना, भीतर धर मीत प्रीत रे, डरो नहीं, मन करो मजबूत रे, करोना जब आए पास मारो उसे जूत रे, करोना जब आए पास मारो उसे जूत रे. So with these words, I want to pray to God for all. Keep peace, calm everywhere in whole world, because we all are a world family, all are one, and we have to keep the humanity everywhere, love and cooperation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Acharya Ji Umesh Yadav, for sharing your experiences and a melodious contribution to the evening. On that note, I'm going to move very swiftly forward and call on Mr. Gurdev Singh, who's representing the Sikh community in Birmingham, to share a few words with us. Please welcome with a round of applause.
That's a problem with the tall people. Thank you. Friends, my sisters and brothers, I'm not really a learned person like you have heard the first speakers, I just collect little information from everyone, and then I share it with you. Well, Brother Tajiri told me that we should talk about something about pandemic. Well, I'm not a doctor, and I really can't say so much things what everybody faced. But one thing I'm very sure, in this hard time is the lockdown, we learned one thing, that we felt the same pain. We felt the same type of losses, like we lost our loved ones. And we had same need everywhere. We needed same thing. From there, this one thing is for sure, that this is because we are created by the one. Because who created us, he gave us that same type of feelings. That's why we feel the same thing. Maybe we have different names, different religions, different backgrounds, but in reality, we are created by one. Our creator is just one. In our scriptures, Saint Kabir says such a beautiful lines. He says, Awwal Allah Noor upaya, Kudrat ke sab bande, Ek noor te sab jag upjaya, Kaun pale ko mande. Meaning that Khuda, that Allah, he created a light, divine light, Noor-e Khuda. He created that. And with that, he created the universe. He created us. So he says that if he's the one who created us all, then how can we differentiate who are the better ones and who are the lower ones? Because he created everyone same. It is we as a human beings, sometimes we start differentiating that I'm superior or other person is inferior. But in reality, everything which is created by one God, it can't be different. We are all same. Then in other lines, Saint Kabirji says that loga param na pu lokai. Khalak, khalak, khalak mein khalak, poor reho sab time. Kabirji is saying here that don't get confused by looking at different types of things in this world. Because the creator who created this universe, he is within his creation. And this all creation is it. It is in the creator. So the creator is everywhere. It's within us all. It's only that our eyes is the one which we don't see. Like every human being, I think every human being has a red blood. I don't think anybody has a different one. We feel the same things. So the best thing is that in this lockdown and this pandemic, the thing which we learned, like all the brothers, sisters from all different communities, they came together to help the needy. Well, I'm very much appreciate, and also I thank my brother who said something about our Sikh community, because that is what Guru Nanak gave us, that serve the needy. Because he also said in the scriptures, because I mostly talk about scriptures, I don't talk so many things about the world, philosophy of the world, because my scriptures have given me everything. Just like we find all the answers and questions we need, or everything we need information, we get it from Quran. We get all the answers from Bible. Our scriptures, which has been written by our religious leaders, has all the answers. We don't need to look anywhere else. So, lastly, I will just say this. Like, our scriptures only says that hoy akattar milo mere bhai. That all my brothers, my sisters, my friends, let's all get together. होए एकत्र मिलो मेरे भाई, दुबदा दूर करो लिवलाई. Remove the differences which we have in our heart. My sister just said, Helen, that love thy neighbor. It's beautiful. Like in that 3 words, it's the philosophy of the world, harmony. We can be the happiest in this world with those 3 words. So, dubda dur karo livlai, remove that differences in us. Har naame ki ho wo jodi. Get together, be friends, to get together and pray to the God. Praise the Lord. Then he says, Har naame ki ho wo jodi, gurmukh betho safa bachai. That, my friends, put mats down, just like when we do namaz. Let's put the mat down. We all sit down, gather together, and pray to that Lord. Because we are created by the one, then why should we be separated? Let's all become one. So, in the end, I must have made plenty of mistakes. I'm not a very good speaker. Please forgive my mistakes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gurdev Singh, for a very beautiful, thought-provoking reminder of our shared humanity and our oneness. Now, the clock is against us, so I'm going to very quickly invite the director and founding director of the Al-Mahdi Institute, Sheikh Arif Abdul Hussain, to the front. And I know, having my experience with him, that he always keeps the time very well. So please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be with you all. Namaste, Sasrikalji, and good evening. Such wonderful, wonderful thoughts that have been shared today, and it just shows that whichever tongue speaks, it's the same essence that is being pronounced. Now, Sheikh Tajri has said, I've only got 5 minutes. Once I start talking, it's very difficult to stop. So I'll try not to start talking. Just pass the 5 minutes like this in jest. But when God decided to place Adam upon earth, there was a bit of a protest by the angels that were gathered. This is what he will shed blood and cause corruption. God said, even then, I have confidence in this one. God showed a lot of confidence despite the prospect of bloodshed and corruption. And I think God's confidence was well placed. The turbulent course that humanity has taken, discriminating through religion, through ethnicity, through statuses, through colors. But look at how humanity, after every major trial and test, is coming together as one, transcending their differences, reclaiming their godly beauty. After the First World War, we drafted the Charter of Human Rights that are binding for humans as humans. Coronavirus was the greatest mercy of God upon us. Had it not been for this virus, these self-obsessed people, so righteous within themselves, justifying whatever they were doing through any means, be it even in the name of God and religion, we suddenly broke through our biases. We went beyond color. We went beyond statuses. We went beyond religion. We became one people. That same spirit that fills our souls, it started to shine through. What was arbitrary, what is not us, but we took on as ourselves, broke, it left us, and the true light of God started shining through us. By God, call him God, call him Allah, call him Bhagwan, call him Jehovah, by whatever name you call him, we are invoking the same beauty that fills our chests. He is right here, not within the temples or the mosques, not within Kaaba or Jerusalem or anywhere else. He resides within us. He only requires an expression. And as soon as an expression is given, that beauty emerges from deep within us. What I want to say, though, is that during the pandemic, we found a common enemy that brought us together. Maybe we need to understand through reflection that there is a common beauty that should bring us together, rather than a common enemy. And as we rejoice our achievements and coming through this pandemic successfully, maybe we need to remind ourselves that our human family is not confined to the UK or to the West. There are many segments of our human family elsewhere for whom the pandemic did not make any difference. We died from corona. They did not understand what the virus was. They were dying on a daily basis through cholera, malnutrition, through coronavirus, through bombs falling upon their heads. And that was the greatest tragedy. Today, even during the pandemic, we ate. People starved to death. These are our human brothers and sisters. Maybe we need to awaken to that. Maybe greater awakening needs to come within us. So as we celebrate our achievement for coming through the pandemic, and now we see that we were able to leave our human frailties behind. Initially, of course, the reaction was not a very befitting reaction, panic buying and whatever else we did, the greed and hoarding, but eventually goodness came through. But we need to extend that goodness. Now, the success of God's plan is that humanity comes at a level of one human family. God does not reject an atheist or an agnostic, as a parent cannot discriminate between one and another child. God's love is blind. He loves the atheist as much as he loves the theist. We need to understand that. As success for a parent is in the success of their children, and success for an instructor is in the graduation of the whole class, the success of the beloved is in the coming of age of the entirety of his humanity. We are placed here for a reason. It is our time to get it right, and I have no doubt that as God showed optimism, we need to be optimistic about ourselves, and the pandemic has brought the best out in us. We need to be confident of ourselves, and we need to push forward. Now I want to leave us with this sentiment. Don't look at me like that. I see, well, goodness was coming out of me, and you reminded me that we need to say something today, despite that glance that I'm getting from that the wars that are taking place in the world of ours, they are not needed. Just as poverty has to be a thing that becomes left behind in history, should be confined to the archives of history, similarly, we are in the 21st century. We are no longer adolescent children. We don't have to shout and fight and swear at each other. We don't need to hit each other, take up arms and kill each other. We can settle disputes through diplomacy, through good negotiation. I'm going to make a very critical remark here. Unfortunately, two types of people through us let us down, and this is our biggest weakness. Heads of states and heads of religions who can manipulate, exploit, and lead the masses in a direction that the masses do not want to be led in. But before we know, we are in the thick of crisis. Coronavirus was a mercy from God. If we can learn our lessons and know that we as people, be we Ukrainians or Russians, Saudis or Yemenis, Muslims or Christians, Jews or Christians, Sikhs or Hindus, atheist or theist, we are human beings. We transcend all these differences. We are the lights of the beloved. We need to do our bit, and we need to forcefully make a statement that we do not want any more wars in this world of ours. Look at the failure of humanity in the name of a few. On the one hand, we have the climate crisis upon our heads. We are talking about cutting down carbon emissions, and on the other hand, we throw tons of bombs upon this earth. On the one hand, we want to cut down on aerosols, and with these bombs that we have, they finish off everything that we do within an instance. We are not to be loyal to our states or to our religions. Our loyalty is owed to our humanity and our human family. And our loyalty is owed to our beloved. And with that, I shall end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh Arif, for conveying such a beautiful message without starting to speak at all. That brings us to the last item. I know iftar time is very fast approaching. I'm going to welcome Sheikh Mahmoud Dala to the front. Sheikh Mahmoud is, of course, one of the staff members of the Al-Mahdi Institute, working on the outreach arm of the Institute of AMI. AMI, of course, is a NGO of the UN. As part of this role, is carrying out collaborative work with the Beta Charitable Trust, and Sheikh Mahmoud will talk to us about the campaign of striving against starvation, which links in very well with what was just said. So please welcome him with a round of applause.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Greetings of peace on all of you, beautiful people and beautiful souls. Continuing on the positive note of Sheikh Arif, is an incident that comes to mind that the Imam stood in front of his congregation, and this could be true of a rabbi or the pundit or the priest, and he said that we have some good news and some bad news. Which one do you want first? The congregation said, well, we want the bad news first. He said the roof of the mosque is leaking very, very badly. There was a sigh. But he said the good news is that we have already raised all the funds that are required for it. There was another big sigh and happiness. And people asked, how could it happen so quickly? Where are the funds, Imam? He said they're already with you, which you are going to be giving. As we are coming out of COVID, alhamdulillah, by the way, the roof here is just fine, thanks to God. The roof is very much leaking in large parts of our human family, which Sheikh Arif spoke about so touchingly. According to the WHO, over 800 million people are undernourished and exist on less than 1 pound per day. COVID-19 obviously caused devastation all around the world, but like he also said, in these places of deprivation, there was no difference to them really. COVID became just another cause of death for them. Poverty is man-made. There is no reason for poverty to exist today, particularly in the 21st century. It is a responsibility and weight on the collective human state to eradicate this. We are part of this human family, and a part of our family are suffering. As we are coming out of COVID, these people are still existing in this situation in which they were before. Sheikh Tajri has briefly said about this striving against starvation program. This is an initiative which provides an aid and food to the most poorest and deprived people. The focus predominantly is in Afghanistan and Yemen, but also in African countries, India and Pakistan, but also here in the UK, where Beta Charitable Trust, who has a 100% donation policy, are providing food banks with supplies and collaborating with refugees from Ukraine and Afghanistan as well. Now, £10 will provide a family with a food parcel for one whole week. £10 will feed a family for a whole week. This is about £1.43 for a substantial meal daily for a family of 4. This is my coffee that I'm buying maybe every day, but this will feed 4 people. We should not look at them as people who need our help. If you look closer, you will see in them our own fathers and mothers, our own brothers and sisters, and our own children. Our own extensions will be found in them, because we find God saying in the Quran that He is the one who has created you from one soul. In fact, we are more in need of them than they are in need of us. And this I have repeated at times, but it is wisdom that I have got from my teacher, and I wish to share with you. The need of the wealthy to the poor is far greater than the need of the poor to the wealthy. Whereas the poor need assistance to survive a few years of this transient life, the wealthy need to share their wealth with the needy to secure an eternal life to come. If you wish to support this initiative, you can do so at the desk by the entrance where you came. Thank you, and may God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh Mahmoud. On a final note, I'm going to ask Sheikh Arif to come forward. And you would have noticed when you first came in, at the entrance, you all received a raffle ticket. Sheikh Arif will ask you to pick one out so that the lucky winner will get the prize. The number of the winning raffle ticket is 499. 499. So whoever that is, well done, and please claim your prize at the front desk over there. I'm going to swiftly move us on to the Maghrib prayer before the Iftar, the congregational prayer. We will be, because the weather is